I'm resident of College for YouTube, joined by my buddy Patrick McCray, author of the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound, and my buddy Gordon Dymowski. We're here to talk Dark Shadows episode 1102, chosen by my buddy Gordon. So, Gordon, why did you pick this episode, buddy?
Well, I picked it for a couple of reasons. The first one was I had seen somebody else. They're doing a Dark Shadows podcast, and they kind of described this episode, and I thought, okay, yeah, let's, we've been kind of floating in kind of safe territory. Let's maybe go deeper into kind of the darker tail end of it. So there's that. Secondly, it's because someone in this room kept insisting they wanted to do a Green Acres retrospective, and I had to say, you know what? Patrick's expecting a Dark Shadows discussion, Jewel. We're not going there. That's disrespectful. Shame on you, Jewel. Shame on you. But plus, it's also, I think, coming right in the middle of the 1970 sequence before 1840, are a couple things that it does well. One is that sense of dread. That sense of, okay, it's inevitable. But I think we also see, I mean, one of my favorite scenes, it's handled very delicately, is that Barnabas is looking over Maggie because she's being attacked by the mystery vampire. And he's thinking, because it's voiceover, and he thinks, oh, now that she's being attacked, I now understand what I did to her. And I think this might be one of the, I think it's part of the Barnabas moving from, I think it was 327 or 346 where Sarah tells Barnabas to be good. I think this might be one of the few times.
364.
364. This might be one of the few times where Barnabas really, it's starting to click for Barnabas, that he's moving from doing good things to being good. Plus, there's a whole lot of cool stuff. There's the vampire, the way that the mystery vampire is presented. Just in terms of being a hat in all dark. I think it's also, speaking of the dark, I think this is where the show really just said, we're no longer a soap opera. I think it's one of the nice things about this kind of last year and a half is that Dark Shadows, even though it's a soap opera, maybe in name and form, it's really embracing the supernatural drama of it. And it's very dark in terms of lighting, in terms of, subject matter. Oh, and Kate Jackson in a nice red dress. Let's just put that right out there.
The dress, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great visual signal because it's cut very similar to Vicky's blue dress.
Mm-hmm.
But it's on sort of the opposite side of what we think of as the color wheel, even though it's not really on the opposite side. But you know what I mean. Red and blue are natural enemies.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed this because this episode, you have David Selby who does the opening voiceover, and you do get the mystery vampire in this episode. You don't know who it is. And really, I got to give a lot of credit to the costume designers and how they dress the vampire because they're keeping it a mystery. You have all decked out in black, a black hat. This could literally be anybody, which is great. A great, interpretation for them to do. You have Dr. Julie Hoffman who's fallen asleep in the chair. You have Maggie who is more than tempted by the vampire. Quentin comes in to sort of save the day. He rushes to the window toward the window. But you also get a sense of Quentin's betrayal in this episode and how he feels that he's betrayed everybody. And he sort of feels guilty in this episode, even though he's going to do it later on in this very same episode. It's because he truly trusts and is in love with Daphne. And Daphne, he confronts her about it too. He says, the children are sick, and she shakes her head like, no, like what? She comes to an understanding with him, like, look, if you leave here, I can maybe fix things. And she she's trusting Gerard Stiles, the ghost of Gerard Stiles, or who she believes is the ghost of Gerard Stiles. We all know better. This is Judah Zachary's playbook of destruction here, which is really, really good. We don't. Again, the cool thing is that we get a mention of Gerard Stiles. We get a mention of Rose Cottage in this episode. A lot of things are coming together. We don't get the reveal of who the vampire is. I think that's just even more fun to not have that in this episode, but we do get the vampire coming into Maggie's room. We get Barnabas feeling sorry for Maggie, not feeling sorry for himself, feeling sorry for what he did to Maggie, like Gordon said. And I think that is really, really awesome storytelling. And just
it's a hell of a moment of realization for Barnabas. You know, I mean, it's Dark Shadows, God bless it, has no interest in subtlety. So when a character learns a lesson, by God, they're going to say, I just learned a lesson. And I like that about it. It's very unpretentious. So I think that's terrific. Jewel, I cut you off. Keep going. Then I've got a thought I want to.
Well, the one thing I was going to finish with is what I really like too is, though we don't see Carrie in this episode, we get the sense of the kids are in sort of this danger, even in this episode alone, because they've been building to, okay, the kids are in danger. We know what 1995 says. We know that's the thing to keep in mind with 1970. Barnabas and Julia know the future, or at least they think they know how the future became this way. There are things they don't know that is sort of happening right under their nose. For example, Quentin and Daphne. Which Quentin is gonna he doesn't do it in this episode. He is eventually going to admit to Barnabas, I lied to your face. And I love the confession of it, though it doesn't happen in this episode. And I just love David Hennessy in this episode too. Really, really, really great interaction with Dr. Julie Hoppin, with Quentin, and with obviously Kate Jackson, Daphne. Go ahead.
Well, what I was gonna say was the stuff of legend. What I was gonna mention though is that when we hear Quentin talk about how he's in love with her, I've held you in my arms, kind of thing. We haven't seen a lot of that. We get told, compared to Quentin's other romances, this is one where we are more told that it's happening than we're shown it's happening, right?
Yeah.
Am I off on that? It feels like we just kind of, it gets reported to us. It all happens off stage. So that brings up some interesting questions. Why did they choose to tell the story like that? Well, it could just be they had a lot to do, But it's a big smelly but. I want you to think about something, Jewel. What if we don't see it because it didn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
What if we don't see it because Quentin is completely mind controlled? And what if we don't see it because Quentin is completely mind controlled by something that's not Daphne? Yeah. We have less evidence that this is Daphne than we have that the ghost of Quentin is Quentin. Yeah. Okay? This is a creature claiming to be Daphne. Yeah. I think it makes... Why the hell would a ghost impersonate... no, not impersonate. Why would a ghost mind control 1.5 other ghosts and make them do this or that when the ghost can simply change its appearance to be whatever it wants? So from what I can tell, although Judah Zachary did control Gerard in 1840, after death, I think this is just Judah in different guises. I think, there's a really creepy shot where Quentin and Daphne are kissing, right? And they kind of pull apart, and the camera then shifts to a mirror, and in the mirror, it's Judah Zachary that he's talking to, but he thinks it's Daphne. I think that's a very likely scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. Is it at all possible that perhaps Judah Zachary is also controlling Quentin's mind, causing him to sometimes think he's the Quentin from 1840?
Yeah, mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, because you've got to ask yourself, who is suffering the most?
Yeah.
When Judah does that, he's actually not making Quentin suffer.
Yeah.
Because Quentin's not entirely aware of it.
Right.
It's kind of like having a seizure condition. Often it affects everyone else, but not the person with the seizure condition because they're not there at the time. With this, it is to eat away at the foundation of faith that Barnabas and Julia have with their adult peer, the one person they thought they could rely on.
Mm-hmm.
Which the one person they entrusted was Quentin, because they tell Quentin about the future, and Quentin sort of pretty much he sort of is a doubting Thomas to a degree, because he's saying, look, some of this stuff you're saying has already happened. For example, Elizabeth has already had her horoscope read. It's easy to doubt Barnabas and Julia from their side of it, because Julia and Barnabas, the clues they have are somewhat vague. They don't know whose horoscope didn't get completed. They just know a horoscope didn't get completed. So they assume it's perhaps Elizabeth's, but it's actually Carolyn's. Carolyn's horoscope isn't completed, which is something, we're going to, we learn. And with the ghost of Gerard Stiles / Judah Zachary, he has so much power. I mean, we know he seduced Julia in 1995. We know that he has no problem controlling people at his will. I mean, we've literally seen him possess children. And do you think Dark Shadows, here's my question with this. Did the Dark Shadows writers, by showing Daphne, are they trying to sort of deliberately not just deceive the characters, but deceive the audience to a degree?
That's a very interesting question. The answer is yes, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
The answer also is no, I don't think that's what they're trying to do. Yeah. I think they're telling a much more straightforward story. It's just that with all the context of Dark Shadows and all the implication of what's happening afterward, it becomes a much bigger story than they intended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have to keep in mind they weren't keeping volumes of past continuity. This was, okay, what can we do that worked before? Okay, we can set up the whole turn of the screw thing, 2 ghosts, 1 male, 1 female. I think they might have been doing it as a showcase for Kate Jackson, as in, is this someone we want to use if we continue on the air? Because that makes a lot of sense. It's like, I'm sure that if after 1840, with 1841 parallel time, I'm sure that if James Storm were available, he might have played Morgan Collins, simply because they know, okay, he's a solid actor, he can deliver. I know that, so I don't think it's very easy, because we're 50 years out and we can see the whole show at once to kind of make inferences about how it was put together. It's a lot harder to kind of see things in context, where, okay, when you focus on the local context within the frame of, lose the 50-year concepts. It does feel like, yeah, I mean, it's the, I do think Daphne is, I don't think she's Judah himself. I think he's more of a like, okay, let me do the spell. This is the thing that will make Quentin become infatuated. And then as Quentin is infatuated, then he becomes more pliant, and Judah can go, okay, you're back in 1840. But I don't think it's, I think I would be curious as to, like, I know there are interviews with writers and I've been meaning to read all of them, but I wonder what their, like, all throughout the show, what was their creative process? Was it always Dan came in and said, do this? Or was it like Dan said, okay, I want us to do X, Y, Z, and then they had to figure out how to do X, Y, Z?
Those are excellent questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer is probably yes. I think it just depends. I think, you know, some days it was one, some days it was the other.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not very satisfying, but that's the best I got in this case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm also curious. I mean, I'd love to actually read some of the scripts, the original scripts. I don't think they're available, and I'm also a glutton for punishment. You know, I'm the kind of, you know, I'd love, you know, I would, you know, I could see myself thinking, hey, I'm bored. Why don't I read the scripts for all 1,245 episodes?
Yeah, they exist piecemeal, but you have to go to a convention, which means getting in a time machine,
Mm-hmm.
and seeking them out that way.
You know what? I'll just I Ching, because I was at the 91 and 95 conventions at LA Marriott. You know, I can hop into my younger self. I can remind myself not to. I can remind myself not to do the thing that got me a restraining order by one of the actresses. I'm not going to name who.
Okay.
I could say, hey, you know, you might want to watch out for that McCray guy. He's going to prove to be a bad influence on you.
It's true. And proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! What? Okay, guys, what's your guys' favorite scene from this episode?
I don't know if this is really a favorite scene kind of episode because it's all so sad.
Yeah.
I like it, but I feel almost ghoulish or ghoulish, one or the other, going into favorite scene territory. It is, and it's a solid enough story that I think it's probably worth it to just let it exist on its own. That's my take.
Gordon?
Well, I think the moment I cited earlier, I like, which is when Barnabas starts to says, hey, I can't, now that I see what she's going through, I can't believe everything I did for her. Because I think in the midst of all that darkness and all that dread, the fact that, you know, if Dark Shadows is about two characters who are who have become inhuman, who are striving to go back to humanity and regain their humanity, this is a key step for Barnabas, because it does refer back to, I mean, because when you look at that Barnabas and Maggie, the initial arc way back when, I mean, Barnabas is just, he has his moments, but he also, you know, he has his moments of like charm and whatever, but he is just, I mean, he is, you could see another actor in that arc. If he had not won over the audience like Frid did, you know that at the end it would have been, okay, we stake him, you're out, let's get to the next one. And I think it gives Barnabas, especially when you consider his entire life up to that point. He's put in the coffin. He's up for 1840, but his future self I Ching's his brain, so he's scrambled. He wakes up in 1897, has a magical duplicate, but he's in this weird I Ching thing. He comes out in 1966. He attacks Carolyn, attacks a bunch of people, stalks Maggie, gets a man on for Victoria. He's visited by his dead sister, and then he's got to wait until Vicky goes back in time, and he's worried about, oh, will she figure out the truth about me? Then you've got Dream Curse Adam. He decides to go back to 1897. He comes back to Leviathan and say, "You're our dude." For a vampire, he takes on Jeb Hawks, who is the most immature Lovecraftian god ever.
Yeah.
And Hawks says, "You're a vampire again." Oh, great. He decides, how do I cure this? Oh, wait, there's a book about the life and death of Bartimaeus Collins. I'm going to go into parallel time. Well, he does it. What happens? Willie chains him. And he's stuck in that coffin. Then he gets out. Luckily, he succeeds against John Yeager, but after this point, it's almost nonstop failure. He fails to save Roxanne in parallel time. He goes to 1995, sees the future happen. There's another failure, a perceived failure, because he wasn't around to save them. Then he goes back in time, and right now, he is failing at preventing everything that's happening. Yeah. And at this point, when you've gone through that much failure, there's very little confidence. There's very little drive. And the fact that he's gone through all this, he's seeing Maggie, and the thing that he says is, "Man, I can't believe." Basically, "Oh man, I really worked her over, didn't I?" This isn't just an apology. This is. I'm gonna throw. Okay, here's where I get a little bit more obscure. I originally trained as a substance abuse counselor, so I know about 12-step philosophy, and I have friends who are in AA, NA, Al-Anon, etc. And one of the concepts is making an amends, which is different than an apology. An apology is, I did this to you, I regret my actions, I won't do it again. An amends, you're committing to further behavior. So if I need to make an amends to Jewel to say, "Hey, look, I will not show up to his podcast recordings drunk," it's up to me to not drink before his podcast recording. I am making an effort.
That's not.
I think this. Yeah, and I will always do this drunk. That's the guarantee, folks. I will be. Hey, there have been some podcast recordings where I've been tripping balls and you didn't notice it. But anyway,
the balls.
I think this is the first. I think this is Barnabas starting to realize that he needs to make some kind of amends to her. We don't see it because in 5 episodes she's back off to Wyncliffe. But I think it's him realizing that, hey, I just can't. It's not just. This is more than just an apology. This is changed behavior. So I think it's in that scene. And yes, I'm kind of defying my own rule and reading more into it, but I think that's my favorite moment within the whole episode, which is basically it's like listening to Joy Division's Closer album over and over and over. It's just, if you're in a bad mood, it's great, but if you're in a good mood, yeah, it's rough.
Quentin's decision to take Daphne to see the kids to Wyncliffe, because two things. One, he's taking her, but 2, he has to realize this decision is only going to lead in disaster, because in every way he's going to get caught in a lie. It's my favorite scene in this episode is Quentin Collins, David Selby's character, lying to Dr. Julia. He's stopping Hoffman from going in the room and seeing what's in there. He even says he was just in there, that David's sleeping. And when she goes in, she sees Daphne. By the end of this episode, they're going to be aware of Quentin's betrayal to them. And really, it's a great job by David Selby, Grayson Hall, and the writers to make this decision, because this is the realization you sort of need. Okay, we took this man and we trusted him. Now we know we can't by the end of this episode, because there's no room for wiggle room here. You just told a blatant lie. And I love that fact. And it doesn't really hurt Quentin's character. it makes you feel sorry for him because you get the sense that he does love Daphne in a sense, whether it's the real Daphne or not. He believes he loves Daphne, so you sort of feel sorry for him in the sense. But I do love the scene. What's something about this episode that shocked you guys the most?
Shocked me the most. How desolate Maggie is. What terrible shape she's in, and the knowledge that this is no longer a TV show. This is actually her life, and we have been too casual with viewing her, quote unquote, as a TV character, even though she is, because now suddenly we are seeing real consequences. If you see, I don't know, Starsky and Hutch, and they jump off a ledge once a week and, land on concrete and they're Italian loafers and keep running and don't break an ankle, that means they're TV characters. But if one of them suddenly breaks his leg, or if in a high-speed chase they, accidentally kill a family of pedestrians or something like that, suddenly, everything changes and the rules have changed. And that's what this storyline's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the thing that shocked me about this episode was just how dour and how and just the overall kind of really moody atmosphere. I mean, it's easy to say, hey, it was 1970, existential garbage fire of the time, but it's just so. I mean, again, it's a dark storyline, but there's a way to do darkness on daytime television where you kind of at the end you can kind of go and not carry it out. And this, and it's not a complaint because it's a good episode, but it just really felt like there's a shot of Quentin holding the brandy snifter, just like Roger would, and had that feeling of isolation, and the fact that Quentin is, he's betraying them, but he's also like more like, I've got to do this even though I don't want to. And even if he is under the influence of by supernatural means, there's just the sense of this is not a feel good episode. This is not one where at the end you're going to be like, yay, people won. It's just like, oh, like you can kind of understand why people started to leave around this time, because it's not 1897 was bright and beautiful and hopeful, that even in the worst moments you could leave and go, that was great television. I feel better. I got to escape. Here it's kind of like I've seen Zack Snyder movies that have been more cheerful.
That's setting an unbelievable bar, but I know exactly what you mean.
My most shocking, to me, the most shocking moment is the fact that you have this mysterious vampire enter Maggie's room, and how creepy and scary this looks. It looks completely terrifying. This is something I feel is really lost in horror today, where somebody is just standing there and they're all dressed in black, but they mean harm. And that's the most scariest thing. It's not the fact that they're doing harm. It's the fact that they mean it, and they're in the room with the person who they mean to do harm to. And it's one of the most frightening things about this episode.
This is a very this is a storyline so bleak that it although they do reveal who the baddie is, they don't really have any. They only do it because it sort of has to happen. It is not an orchestrated moment of theatrical oomph. And that's really interesting, because when you have an orchestrated moment of theatrical oomph, there is love for the audience. There is a sense of, we're going to build up the suspense and then have this grand revelation. The show doesn't care. The show is on a very angry mission right now. And at this point, it's like Jerry Lewis, the end of the telethon, where he's all hopped up on Percocet and his tie is down and he's coated in sweat and saying, I don't care if you people love me. You're going to give. You're going to give till it hurts. I mean, it really is. It's like Sam Hall saying, I don't care if they like this or not. We're going to grab them and not let them go.
Yeah, and you don't even get the benefit of hearing an off-key version of You'll Never Walk Alone.
What, sung to someone with muscular dystrophy?
Mm-hmm.
That's very sensitive, Jerry. Very sensitive. You never got the irony of that.
Is there anything you guys want to add about this episode before we go?
I would say that it's, I think a lot of post 1897 Dark Shadows tends to get put on the maybe pile and doesn't get a lot of respect. Part of it is just that, how do you improve on 1897? And this particular episode, even though we've talked about how it is so dour and there's a lot of, it's very moody for all of everything that we've perceived, it's also part of how Dark Shadows at the time was just like, we got to figure out how to keep this going. And I think the writers do it. There's a confidence in the writing where they kind of know what they're doing. They're working with familiar material. They're working kind of, if not the top of their game, they're doing it with the confidence of, yeah, we know what they're doing. And I think it's still, it's still worth checking out.
Patrick?
I agree. Yes. I agree with what Gordon said. I was busy thinking about our next episode also.
I feel like that this sort of era of Dark Shadows, you guys have talked about how dark it is, and it is. It's very much the Watership Down of Dark Shadows. In every way. I mean, it's very dark. It drains a lot of the characters of the hope and the constant betrayal. The portrayal in this arc is all the more knife twisting, if you will, especially here, because you have two characters specifically in Barnabas and Julia who have seen the future, and they're trying everything in their power to prevent that future from becoming a nightmarish reality, because they've already seen that nightmarish reality, which I love. I think that this episode really drives a lot of those sort of images home. Like when you see 1995 and you watch this episode, you can't help but think about how 1995 looked, which is really interesting and amazing. But I have a really nice selection for you guys for the next episode. You ready?
Does it involve cute fluffy bunnies?
No. But by the way, my favorite bunny was Bigwig. It's episode 363. That's the episode I'm picking, and you'll glad to see why I picked it. So, guys,
episode 363.
363. It's the episode. It's the episode before Sarah confronts Barnabas. So.
Oh, yeah. Botany Bay.
Yeah.
Botany Bay.
So, but that's my episode selection, guys. First of all, thank you for doing these with me. These are a lot of fun. I enjoy very, very much. These two gentlemen are awesome. You can go get the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound on Amazon. Link will be in the description box. You can go get Gordon's stuff on his Amazon page. Link will be in the description box. Gentlemen, you have a safe night, and I will see you tomorrow night.
All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye.